All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and get this party started here. So to introduce myself, my name is Francis O'Rourke, and I am one of the folks leading up the AV here. I'll let Justin introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin. I'm with one of the FRC teams out of New Hampshire. I'm helping Francis set up some of this and coordinating some of the effort here. So, yeah, we'll be going through our training today.
All right, cool. So just a general overview of what we're going to be going over today. We're going to start by sort of showing off all of the things, so you're familiar with what everything is, and then once we show you all the different bits and pieces, we'll go into going over how the setup of a lot of this stuff works very briefly, and then we will go into the operation of it all, how to make the video and the audio sort of go together. So just to, and I apologize, I'm not quite looking in the camera because it's over to the side, but so the basic gist is that New England First, we've decided to bring sort of AV sort of in-house a little bit. And there's two reasons for that, or several reasons for that, but two of the big ones are, first off, is that if you weren't aware prior to this, we've used out-of-house AV vendors in the past, and they basically drive about half or more of the budget of a district event. So that can be a lot of money saved by New England First. So through this, New England First has purchased all of this AV equipment. They purchased screens, projectors, cameras, speakers, all that stuff to make everything happen, and to bring the AV to the event without having to hire this external company. So we still use a licensed external company to do all of the power runs. So we figured that we don't want volunteers messing with high voltage or medium voltage power. That's dangerous. But all the AV stuff is well within the capabilities of the people who do First or are volunteers for First. So the general gist is that you will be, as volunteers, you'll be sort of setting up the sound for the event, the video, and the projection for the event. Those are the three big sort of sections of the whole thing, okay? And a lot of this was based off of, this whole plan was sort of based off the practices of other districts. So it's kind of a mishmash of different proven concepts from the Mid-Atlantic District and from the Pacific Northwest District. And so with that, we'll go over the very basics. So when you get to your events, you're going to be receiving a road case, which will have a bunch of stuff in it. The road case normally lives in pod 3 or 4, depending on where it is. There's actually 2 road cases. Actually, Justin, would you pan the camera toward the rolling case? So the case that Justin's about to show you, you can kind of see it in the camera. This is what we sort of call the AV case. This is a rack mount rolling black case. It's got some covers on it. Normally, there's a cover on the front and a cover on the rear. So this lives in case number pod number 4. The other case you'll get is basically a large road, sort of like the field road cases with an open side that has nets on it. That's used to be called the awards case, because it used to be what they would hold all of the trophies and stuff in. But now that's where all the AV stuff goes. And so that will have all of the components that we're about to show you here. So the first thing you do is you get that stuff and you can sort of begin the setup. The first step to any sort of setup is to verify with the FTA where you're getting your power and where you're getting your internet from. And that means that you may not be able to start setting up AV stuff right away, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff that has to go on around it to make everything else work, okay? So what I would suggest you do is to try to get your power and your internet squared away sooner than later, but don't try to run cables or don't try to run any wires or anything until the field border is at least up. The carpets are down and the field border is up, okay? So that being said, you may be tempted to help out with field construction. That's okay. But as sort of the AV volunteers, your main objective is to make the AV system work, right? And so help is always appreciated and useful, but we don't want What you shouldn't do is spend a couple of hours building the hub when instead you should be setting up the cameras, because the AV stuff is just as important as making sure the hub is put in place, for example. And you will have special training that will make you able to do it. So that's why you need to do it. So as part of the kit, why don't we show off what's in each of the buckets now? I want to do the, I'm gonna get to that later. I'm going to start off with all the different things that we have first. So we're going to pan the camera, and thankfully I have this wireless microphone that we can move around with. But that being said, if any of you all have questions, then just go ahead and pipe up, and we'll be happy to answer them as we go. So over here, you're going to see 3 totes. These are the totes in their pristine, unchanged condition right now. So no event has gone through them and you know, wrap them differently or mess them up in any way. But these are the 3 totes that basically make up the majority of the hardware for the AV. So the first one is the easy one on the right here. This is what we call the stands and cases rack. So it has stands for the cameras. It has stands for the microphones. It's where the tripod lives. It's where the roller for the tripod lives. This is basically just this is where the keyboard and mouse for the computer lives. It's just a bunch of stuff. Now it comes up to the 2 more specific cases. There's the video and the audio. So in video, it has a bunch of cabling for all the different things you need. And so let's go over a couple of those pieces here. So first off, there's this relatively heavy-duty looking cable. It's called SDI. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically how all sort of professional style video is sent through things. It's not over HDMI because that doesn't really have great range or anything like that. So this SDI has this sort of barrel connector on the end. It's relatively expensive. A roll like this is probably about $70. So this is where all of the video signals are going to get sent over. One tip is that at the end of your event, when you're wrapping this up, you don't have to do a perfect over-under, totally safe cable wrap, but you definitely should not power wrap it, as Justin is demonstrating there. Don't do that. You can do that to an extension cord if you want, but don't do that to the SDI cables, because that's a great way to break them forever. In the kit, you have 4 100-foot cables, 1 50-foot cable, and a handful of 25-foot cables, which we're currently using to make the training work right now. Like that, yep. So those are the main cable length. The most popular ones you're going to use are the 100-footers because they're obviously the longest ones. But we'll get to how you can make those longer if you need to in just a moment. You've also got HDMI. There should be a handful of HDMI cables in there. You're going to use them for the one of the monitors. You're going to use them for the projector. You're going to use them for converting the computers out into the video mixer. Your audience display, exactly, stuff like that. So there are 2 bags. There's this bag, which we'll go over in a second. There's the other bag. So this bag, that other bag has some little connectors that we'll show you in a moment. These are how you connect the SDI cable into the computer. The case that we're going to show in just a moment has all of those already installed, but these are some spares just in case they break or get lost. Or if we bring this district championship, want to do some more cameras or something. Next up is this bag. This thing is the decimator. This is a do-it-all, fix-it-all component that we've deployed into the cases in case something goes horribly wrong. This will convert that SDI signal I was talking about to HDMI, so you can plug it into a monitor. It'll go HDMI to SDI. It'll change your resolution. It'll change your frame rate. It does all sorts of stuff. It has no specific purpose in the kit other than if something goes wrong, one of us, Justin or I myself, may tell you to open up that bag and use it. If that happens, God bless us. But that's the hope is that we don't have to. So also in this case are these cables. So they might be white. There we go. We'll just show the white. We'll show off the white one. Just the black one was from a previous rev, but each of these also comes with 4 of these power cables. So you may notice that they have an SDI type plug on it and a power plug on it. We're only using the power plug on these, okay? Because the barrel connector on it is the BNC connector on this is not super great. So we're just using these to run power, okay? And then next up is the tote inside there that holds all of the bits and pieces. So just gonna move the tripod a little closer here. Point it in there. Okay, so in here, these are the cameras that we're gonna use for actually capturing the field. So you'll notice they're all labeled. They say full or red or blue to depend on where they go on the field. Okay, so hold on, we're drifting. There we go. All right, so the full field camera, obviously it's for the full field, and the red and the blue are for the red and blue sides of the field. Each of these also has their power plug inside of it that you can use for the camera. And in this corner over here, we have the audio, the camera pigtails. Okay, so the way that these work is that, if you want to demonstrate it for me, basically there's one end that's got this sort of multi-prong connector on it here, and it fits into the equivalent end on the camera. So it is keyed. It's not as easily keyed as some other things are, but you can kind of fit it in there. There you go. See, like that. Now it fits in there. Okay. So now this pigtail is basically, we use that for the power plug. Okay. So that's how we plug in the power to each of the cameras with that guy. All right. So also in this kit, oh yes, and point out that, so there on the side of the camera there, that's the SDI in port for that. So what you do is you just take your SDI cable, your video SDI cable, and you can just take the end, plug it into the connector, and twist, and it will create a lock that it doesn't want to come apart. Okay. So also not shown in this case, but it's here. We just had to take it out for a moment. Is the, where did I put it? The clamp for the camera. I think that's in here. Yep. All right. Yes. So the two field side cameras, they use a tripod stand, which we'll show off in a moment, to assemble. But the full field camera uses this clamp. It's got a little 1/4-inch end on it that screws into the bottom of the camera, and then it has this little opening on the end here that grabs onto a pole that we use to elevate up in the air. Okay, so this guy lives in this case as well. And it goes in here. So the other thing that's in this case are these bidirectional converters. Okay, so these are the converters. It'll take your SDI video signal and put it out to HDMI, or it'll take your HDMI signal and put it out to SDI. You'll notice that on the front, it's got HDMI in and out, SDI in and out on the label there. Okay, so we use these in a couple of places. One, we use it to convert the SDI cable signal into HDMI, which we plug into the projector. And the other is that we take the HDMI out of a computer, out of a laptop, and we use that to input into our video mixer. Okay, so we'll go over the places specifically where you're going to use those a little later on, but this is just a preview. You only need to use 2 or 3 of them during your actual show, during the actual event. One is a dedicated spare, but there may be some circumstances in the future where we might want to have an extra input. It's there just in case we need it, but one should be a dedicated spare for you. And they're powered with these guys. It's just a USB-C cable that plugs into them with a power plug. So that's the basic gist of what's in the video tote. Any questions so far on that? I know that we're kind of just showing all the things off and not telling you how to set it up yet, but we just want to kind of familiarize you with some things before we start spouting it off.
Is there visual documentation that goes with this so that we know what to put back where? Since
Yes.
once everything's out,
Yes.
we won't know where to put it back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all of the, all this, we have a full document that basically steps you through this step by step in order to go through the process. And so we're going to be going kind of through that in the second part of this, or after we go through all what's in the totes here, we'll be going through that sort of step by step to sort of show what the process is and demonstrating some of it here. The documentation is written with the intent that you should be able to take it and walk your way through the process from stem to stern and get everything set up correctly. So now let's take a look at the audio tote here quick. So in the audio tote, first up is this box, which has what's called the USB audio interface. It's missing right now because we're using it so you can hear me on the microphone. But this is the device that pipes the audio into the computer, which is where all the fun stuff happens. Also in these bags are microphones. So each kit comes with 2 wireless hand mics like this. Yep, like that one. There you go. It's a red and a blue. And then it also comes with 2 body pack microphones, which is what the masters of ceremonies are going to use, like that. One is white and one is black. And they come with their little earwig microphones. Okay. So let's real quick, let's just show 2 things about these microphones. Let's show how we plug that into there and how we change batteries. Okay, so it's pretty easy for the body packs. That little flesh colored thing kind of goes into the top, and this little earpiece just clips onto the person's ear who's using it. Okay, and they can run that wire down their body or what have you. It's not like an actual earphone, so they don't need to put it in their ear, but it just rests over their ear like that. Okay, so next up is I want to show you how batteries get changed and how to turn them on and off. So to turn it on, we just press and hold that top button there until it lights up. And so green means hot. So if you push that button again, you see how the light turns amber. Amber means that it's muted. Okay, push it again, we're hot.
Hey, everyone.
You might have been able to hear that. It was probably a little low, but yeah, so that's how that works for that part. And to turn it off, you just press and hold the button until the light goes away. So for the batteries, you just push on the 2 sides there to open up that door, and inside there are 2 AA batteries. Each kit also comes with a whole mess of batteries. So in case you need to change them when they die, it should be pretty easy. And then to take those out, just press on the little black button and pull. And pull. There we go. And it's easy as pie. There you go. For the hand mic, real quick, let's just kind of go over how to do the same thing with the hand mic. All right, so same deal with the hand mic. You press and hold the mute power button there to turn it on. And it will come on. And then once you see the battery appear on the screen, that's how you know you're connected to your receiver. Okay, so the green means we're hot. If you press it again, it will mute. Then press it again to unmute, and press and hold to turn off. To change the batteries on this, you just twist the bottom. There's a little twisty there, and then there's a little door that you open, and you pop the batteries out same way there. Okay. All right. So beside those, in this tote, there's also in one of these bags is a wired microphone, which is just a little microphone with a switch on it. I like to have this just in case there's any interference or something and we need to actually make a announcement or something. So this switch up is on, down is off. You just have to plug this into the audio mixer here. So in this bucket is also a ton of what is called XLR cable. Okay, so I will go over that in a second, but yeah. So XLR cable is the audio cable that we use, right? It's the industry standard audio cable. Each case has 500 feet of XLR in 50-foot increments, as well as some short ends to do patching as needed. So XLR is basically a 3-pin connector on it. Okay, so you see we got 3 pins on this side, and the other end of the cable is 3-pin female. Okay, so the beauty of that is that what we can do is if we need a longer cable, we just connect it up. So do you want to just show them how you connect these guys up? There you go. Boom. And now we have a cable that's twice as long. All right. Or however long we need. Okay. There are going to be several runs for the speakers that are going to need cables that are longer than 50 feet. That's why we have so much of it in there, just in case we need to reach anything. So plenty of XLR to go around in there. And then also there's a whole bunch of network cables. They're these green Ethernet cables. These are just, regular old internet cables, right? You'll notice that if you've been around a FIRST field recently, you may recognize these as being what the field actually uses. It's because they're leftovers from previous years that they gave to us. Just a word of warning, make sure that the people on the field don't get antsy and take all of your internet cables at the end of the event. Otherwise, there might be nothing left for AV, or they'll have to steal from the field and then they'll get blamed for that. So basically, all the cables that you have, you're going to take care of, and all the cables that the field has, they'll take care of. That's the idea. Okay.
These also have a Velcro cable tie. The field ones don't, so that's another great way to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, good call. Thanks, Justin. All right. So that's the contents of each of the real quick, and then also in each kit, there's a spare earwig microphone, just in case it breaks or gets lost, or somebody comes down with COVID in the middle of the event and we don't want to risk it. We can just swap this out. Okay. So, well, Justin puts all that stuff back. We'll take the camera over and show off the actual AV PC here. All right, so this is the front end. I'm going to actually lower the legs of the tripod. Let's do the bottom ones. All righty, sorry for the bumpy ride, everybody. Okay, so this is the front of the AV case. All right, so there's 2 parts on here that you should kind of notice. First is on the bottom, there's a computer, the PC. That is what does all the mixing and all the streaming and all that stuff, okay? The PC normally has this door on it that sort of covers the front. It's got a little turny. You just turn it. It's not locked. You just turn it, and it opens up, and there's a power button on the front. And it's got USB on the front, so you can plug in, your keyboard or your mouse, the keyboard and mouse in there, and use them that way. Up top here, this is the audio mixer. Okay, so for those of you who have done audio before, this one is a little bit different. It has all the normal sort of patch, all the normal inputs and outputs that you're normally used to seeing. But it has no physical interface. Okay, the whole thing is controlled over a virtual mixer board that you put on that we have on the computer. Okay, so the computer is actually running all the faders and all the mutes and all the auxiliary buses and all that fun stuff. Okay, so you'll notice that most of these cables are fed back into the case. Okay, on the other end of this case is a lot of other stuff, including the 4 microphones. The 4 microphones will be all set up for you and ready to go. So when you are setting up this case in the field, all you'll have to plug in are your inputs for your laptops, okay, which is going to be the audience display and the music, the DJ computer. Yep. And then also one for the wired microphone, if we have that. And then depending on where you go, some MCs actually bring their own equipment, we'll go over that later on. So this is the front side. You want to say something, Justin?
So then as for your outputs, over here, you've got your main outs. This is, everything played through this. So you have main left and right. Those will go to your speakers. And then you'll see that we have 6 other outputs underneath here. You can't really see them super well, but when you actually see the case, and one of them is the one that you can use to stream to the stream. So we've set it up digitally in such a way that the music from one of these ports won't go out here and out to the stream. That way people will actually be able to hear it when it is recorded and saved later from Twitch. That's it.
If you want to get the red mic, actually, we can both mic up here. That way you can, it's not just, yeah, it gets fancy. Wow, we got all this AV equipment here. Might as well, right? All right, so I'm going to bring this around to the rear of the case. Okay. And so here at the back, you can see the other juicy bits here. So first off are the microphone outs, okay, or the microphone receivers, okay. You'll notice that as I speak, you'll see one of this guy over here. Which one's moving? This guy over here, its levels change. That's because I'm talking in the microphone. If Justin turns his on.
So you should be able to see that one, which is labeled, they're all labeled according to the color of the microphone and then to the input they're tied to. So if you were like, oh, what input is the blue microphone on? It's right there. It's blue to blue. That way you can tell. It's a great troubleshooting guide if you're like, oh, I don't know if this mic is getting sounds or whatever.
Yeah. Also in here is the network switch. Okay. So this is, it's how you do all your internet stuff. You're going to plug the venue internet into the switch, and then the field will actually get its internet off of this switch. Okay. So we've already talked to Chris DeLand, who should be communicating this to all the FDAs, that the basic plan is that in order to keep the webcast off of the field network and to keep us from accidentally taking that whole thing down, we're gonna be the first stop for the internet, and then the field network comes after us. That way nothing gets confused. Okay. The other big thing back here is where you plug in all of the video. So what you'll notice here is we've got one thing already plugged in. That's the audience camera, or excuse me, the ceremonies camera, which ironically is actually something that I can't show you because it's the thing that's actually working right now. But down here, we've got all of these little input guys that are labeled for each of the cameras. So we've got one for the full field, one for red, one for blue, one for the audience display computer, which we'll go over in a moment, and one for the ceremony or the rolling camera. Okay. So I just realized, how do you have a camera take a take a photo of itself? It's not easy to do with another camera. That would do it. Yes. So what I can do, yeah, if you want to do that, you want to like actually get the other camera and just hold it so we can take a look at this thing. Give us just a moment here. We're going to string up another camera and then just swap inputs so we can actually point it at the ceremony camera, and you can look at that there. So just a moment. We're going to also bring the camera back up to full height. While he's doing that, actually, what I think I'll do is I'll show off the last few bits and pieces that aren't part of the bins here. So next up are all the loose pieces. Oops, there we go. Oh, we lost our power. Sorry about that, gang. The camera is brand new and had no battery power. There we go. All right, excellent. So also included in the kit are 4 of these speakers here. This is actually what we're using to give us sound as we're as we're doing the Zoom call with you all. So each of these speakers, there's 4 of them. There's going to be 2 on each side of the field. And they live in these big cardboard boxes. Okay. These get shipped in the pods on top of another road case. So they basically strap these down on top of other road cases. These are the ones that you want for the event speakers. There's also some older looking cases, some older looking cardboard boxes with smaller speakers in them. Those are for the pits. You want to leave those for the pit admin people to take care of because those are for the pits. Also here, we have the speaker stands. They come in these bags, two at a time in the stand. We'll show everybody some pictures about how that gets set up in just a moment. But there's 2 of these bags. Each bag has 2 stands in it. That's for the 4 cameras. Not pictured here because it's just way too big to show in this space. We've also got some pipe and drape, which we use to set up the projector and projector stand. We've got the projector screen itself. And then, of course, we have a stand for the projector and the projector itself. So we're going to show everybody that stuff in a picture form, just because there's not really any space in this particular room that we're in to show everybody how that works. The projector obviously goes really, really tall, and that's a little hard to do. All right, do you want to just swap the wires? Oh no, we can actually, we can mix it. Yeah, that works. Just a moment. We're running into a quick error. I'm just going to swap the cords here. So we're going to go dark for a second, everybody. All right, cool. So we have a different camera view. This is what you're looking at, is what you see for, this is what the field camera is going to look like from the other side. This one's the full field camera. And I'm using that to show off this guy. This is the ceremony camera, okay? So the ceremony camera lives in a little padded case to protect it, and has its own tripod. Thank you, Justin. So it has its own tripod here. The camera itself, it's a Canon camera, okay? So a couple of things to just note about this camera. One, it's got a power plug on the rear. So see where my ring finger is? That's where the power plug's in. You get your video out from this sort of hidden compartment on the front here. Okay, so this little cover will cover that plug a lot of the time. So you sort of pull that up and plug in the SDI there. There's only one place to plug it in, so you can't miss it. And the other thing about this is if you look down the lens, it actually has a shutter on it. I can flip this little button on the side. Don't do that. That's what happens when I try to hold a microphone. Man, if only we had some body pack microphones. Oh, wait. That would have been a smarter move on my part. Would you mind having me the cover for me? So basically, that's just a little shutter. You just want to make sure. You just want to make sure that you have it open when you're at the event. When you're storing it, you can close it. But if you happen to plug everything in and see nothing but a big black darkness, your first bet should be to look at this camera and make sure that the thing actually works there. Okay, so this guy has a tripod sort of foot on it that just screws into the bottom of the camera. and it just snaps into the tripod like so. And then plug it the other way. You show me. I'm confused. Oh yeah, you could do that. Yes. There you go. And it just snaps in like that. Okay. The tripod itself has 3 extending legs. You generally want to extend those all the way up. And it has a moving tripod head like you saw us rotate around earlier. For the most part, you don't have to worry about that because you're going to just kind of set the camera in position and forget about it. The other thing that this has that's cool is it has a set of rolling feet to go with it. So Justin's going to show that off here. We have these little rolling feet. You can unzip them and open, and then they each extend as well. Okay, and you should extend them all the way out. And what you can do is you can take the camera and set the camera into the little locking parts of the feet here. And it will give you a little bit more height for the camera, which is great. And it will also allow you to easily move the camera around during ceremonies, okay? Because a lot of the time you may position it in one place for the opening ceremony, and then you may need to move it out of the way so that robots and people don't hit it, and then all that kind of stuff. So the rolling feet makes it a lot easier to actually manipulate on the floor, okay? There you go. So the one last thing I wanted to go over, would you swap the camera back to this thing? We're gonna go dark for a second, everybody. I promise we're still here. Oh, we're gonna go freezing actually. There you go. All right. So I neglected to show this to you all earlier, but in the audio case, we have a little kit of various audio bits and pieces, okay? So in normal usage, the only part of this that you need to actually use are these devices. So these are called laptop interfaces, okay? They take an XLR, remember the XLR audio cables we were talking about earlier, and have a aux cord on the other side, okay? So that is how you plug into a laptop, okay? And it has a little volume knob on it so that you can easily change your music volume on the go without too much fuss. Say, for example, if someone has a very important announcement they need to make, you can just very quickly grab this thing, turn the volume down, and then fade it back up once they're done, okay? So this guy's, or if, for example, a really loud song comes on, you want to quiet it down, or a quiet song comes on, you want to turn it up, or if it's a dance party, the field breaks, and you want to increase the volume, make everything more exciting, you can just pot this up and make it more exciting, okay? Also in here are a bunch of other audio connectors. They're useful in the case of an emergency or something breaking. So they're basically a whole bunch of different kind of converters. On the general use case, you won't have to use them, but just in case, they're there so that we are prepared in case that does happen, okay? So yeah, for example, we've got a, one that'll go from a 1/4 inch to an aux cable. It'll also go from aux cable to 1/4 inch if you wanted to. We could create this mega stack if we wanted to. We also have XLR, male and female to 1/4 inch. And
most people have probably seen these 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapters, but they're really good for this red box if you want to use like headphones to listen to the stream audio. That's what we did at GSD. It's nice. Just gives you a sense of what they're hearing on the stream.
Yeah. And then we also have just a 1/4 inch to RCA audio, just in case. I don't know. So this is mostly a just in case thing. So we don't ever have any plugs we can't plug into. All right, I'll put this back. And then we'll put this back in the audio case. All right. And so that's the basic tour of all the bits and pieces. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quick now is Oh, here we go. Bob, sorry about be including a full wiring connection diagrams. Yes. Yep. We have a full wiring diagram for this. So the biggest wiring challenge when it comes to this is actually just wiring it on the field for the most part. All the connections that happen at the AV case are basically all set up for you before you get it. So it's all plug and play. You just kind of turn it on and make it go from there. But yes, thank you, Bob, for that question. And if somebody types a question and we don't notice it, don't be afraid to just pipe up and say something, and we'll be happy to peek in there and get it together. So with that said, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to sort of go over the general flow of the setup document we've got going on here. It mostly goes over audio and video, and then we're also going to go over and show some photos and stuff of how everything goes together. Okay, so now we're going to change over to the computer desktop here. You're going to see my face for a moment and then disappear. So now you should be seeing, and does that make sense? Do they see? It's weird that it's frozen, actually. Yeah. Okay, we're back there. Oh, the desktop capture's frozen. Okay. Probably because we added the desktop to it. There we go. Excellent. Okay. All right. So these are a few pictures that we took at the event before everything went away. So this is the road case that you're going to see at the event. Like I said, it's kind of narrow and tall, and it has basically a bunch of cubbies that things go into. And up at the top here, you can see that net that I was talking about. So this case, many people will call this the awards case. This is, like I said, what things used to go in for the awards. The basic way that you pack and unpack this is all of the. Oh, it's a bit blurry. Okay, sure. Let's see here. Yep. All right. Sam, was that better? Let me know if that looks better. We just clicked it on and turned it on for you there. So, all right, cool. All right, so that's what the case looks like. This is the general layout of how it's going to be packed. You've got your 3 totes along the bottom. All the extension cords that we provide for the AV to use are just going to go on top of those. Yep, just stacked on top here. Yes, and the sandbags as well, which we'll go over in a second. The monitors go in their boxes over here. And then over here, we also have a whole bunch of cable ramps that we use to basically make it so that when we run wires, people don't trip over and fall or anything like that.
So one of the cable ramps is going to be a 5-channel. That one's going to be for in between the field and the scoring table. So that one, that'll be what we may use that to run our cables through, but that'll also be used primarily by the FMS. Also of note is I believe the production company that we're using to bring power is also giving us a bunch of cable ramps, but we want to try to utilize those mostly for the pit because they do need some to make sure that robots don't have to try to go over power. So there should be enough at the venue, but just make sure that you're aware that there are 2 kinds.
Yeah, exactly. And the 5-channel one that Justin was going over, hope that the intent is that the field should already have it in their stuff with their FMS stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. But if somebody comes asking, you could take a look in here. I guess actually really, really quickly, before I get any further, we've been going so much on the specifics here that I think it might be useful just to come back to us and say a few words here. So just so you're aware, we ran the system at the Grand State District last weekend, and we had a lot of people say a lot of awesome things about it. And mostly it comes down to meeting the needs of what our events actually are, and also having people who know first and really care about the program being the people in charge of it, right? And so those two things made the event a big success. As part of that, we kind of came up with a plan of how to support events. So right now, we've already done GSD. I will be going to Western Mass for teardown and for setup, and at least for the opening ceremony to help with that. I will also be at the Pine Tree District event and the Central Mass District event to help with support and to help with the setup of that. And Justin is going to be at a bunch of events as well. Justin, where are you going to go?
So this week I'm headed down to Waterbury, Connecticut to help with that event. And then I'm bouncing all over the place. So I'm headed down. Then I'm headed to Reading and Revere, and then up to the Seacoast event, formerly known as Peas. It's kind of just Seacoast now. It's that event. And then I'm planning to probably go back down to Hartford for week 6. So I'll be around.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. All right. So, and I'll be at WPI if that wasn't apparent. Bob, we're using it's not a Dullite brand, but it is a fast fold screen. Yes, it's a different screen company than that, but it is a fast fold screen. So yeah, so you'll notice in here we got the cable ramps that we talked about. Yeah, we'll just see it. We'll just go over there, bring up. Yeah. Oh shoot, I'm seeing my face too many times is the thing. I'm trying to figure out which one's actually me. All right. So in this road case, we've got all that stuff we just looked over, the monitors, the cable ramps. On top of here is the screen, okay? That's where the screen frame and all of the screen surface actually lives. And we'll go over that in just a moment, okay? So inside this box, a little close up, you also can see the bags for the speaker stands in there, okay? A little close up of the monitors and the bases for the pipe and drape, okay? So we'll sort of see that in just a moment here. All right. So let's take a look at. I'm just going to kind of go over this document and go over some of the basic parts. Yeah, it shouldn't be It shouldn't be mirrored to them. It should only be mirrored to me, I believe. Yeah. If you all can't see the text on my screen, or if it looks backward to you, just let us know. You can unclick the mirror my video. There we go. Cool. All right. So we're going to provide this document once all the bits and pieces are fully assembled together. We're going to provide this to everybody, so you'll have a step-by-step guide as to how it works. But I'll just run through the portion of it here, and we can talk about the process for setting everything up. Okay. So first off, this is only a semi-secret. Okay. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit to make it easier to see. Oh, that's not useful. Yep. Here we go. The passwords to all the computers are "we are NE22." Okay, and you can tell people that it's not a super secret. Just the computers need a password to work on certain networks, and so we put a password in there that's pretty easy to remember. So we are NE22. So when you first get to the event, you should find your location for where you're going to be doing your AV stuff from, and set up the AV Roadcase computer, and begin by getting it connected to the network and doing a speed test. Okay, you ever done a speed test before? It's easy. You just go to speed test, just Google speed test. You can click the first link or the second link from speedtest.net, and it will run a speed test on your network connections. Right now we're at WPI, so you're going to see an incredibly high speed. This is a bit of a brag, I guess. Don't expect this at your event. If you happen to see a very low number, we'll want to reach out for support. But as a general rule, it should be at least 900 is not expected. You should be seeing probably at least 10 and 10, or at least 15 and 15 to make it work. Okay. So go ahead.
In setting up your power, do you note that the AV PC does not have a UPS in it? So if you unplug it from whatever your power source is, you're going to lose power. So, just make sure that you have whatever your power is the power you're going to use for the event. So like try to avoid running a temp power for yourself or anything like that.
Yeah. So this is the high level overview of what needs to happen in order. You want to get your speakers in position and run power and the XLR cables to them so that you can get sound. All right. And so we're looking for sound in the venue so that when the teams arrive, if you start setup at, 10 or 11 or 11 or 12, by the time you get to 5 p.m. when the teams are arriving, you should certainly have your speakers hooked up and the microphones working at the very least. And that's so that the venue can announce things to the people who are there if they need to. Okay. After that, you can start to run your camera SDI and camera power cables and run them back to the computer. The reason that comes next is because a lot of the cables for the field itself kind of need to get bundled or cable or wrapped or put in specific places. And so by waiting on that, you give the field time to get itself together before you start working on getting everything else together. Like for example, here, we'll show a picture that's early. You can see here how we've got all these cables in this cable tray on the field. Some of those are the AV companies, a lot of those are AV groups, a lot of those are the field. So you want to kind of get your cables in before everything gets filled up. Okay. After that, you want to run the projector SDI and lines and stuff, but don't put the projector down yet because there's probably a sled of road cases running about. And what's worse than putting a projector on a stick and having it hit by a road case, right? So with that, you're also going to need to set up the AV table location with your DJ computer, which we'll show off in a moment, the audience display computer from the FTA, and your USB audio interface. You haven't set that up already. And then once the area where you're going to put your screen is clear of road cases and people, you can begin to assemble the screen, the pipe and drape the screen rests on, and then the cases that the screen sits on top of. Okay. And then once the screen is clear and up and ready, you can get your projector in position and place stanchions around it to protect it. Okay. So as an example of that, I will show you some photos from this weekend. So we had, let's see here. I did take a picture of that. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get back to that. So yes, we want to sort of protect the projector around it. All right. So the very first things you should do, this is kind of going through the document here, put your AV road case down, get all your stuff out, get it ready to dispense. Bob.
So the production company that's doing power is going to they should run power to the FMS because they'll need it. And we'll also need power, and they should know that we do need those. And so if you don't, that may need to be something you work out with either the FTA or the venue, whatever it be.
The Sports and Recreation.
All right, sorry for that brief intermission. The building we're in made an announcement right over the top of our microphones. So, but yeah, Bob, the power is being handled by the AV company. They're going to basically run one long length of feeder for the field side, and it's going to be one. It's normally we run multiple small circuits, but this year it's going to be one really big circuit. And so your FTA will tell you which plugs they need to do what they need to do and which plugs are available for you to use for AV. But they are aware that the plugs, there's going to be basically like 6 or 8 plugs at the scoring table. And some of those are just for the field and some of those are available for us to use. But this is one of the kind of the big things to talk about is that the FTA is the boss at the event, right? We're doing an important job, but we're in service of what the FTA is trying to accomplish. So we don't want to fight them, right? This is not a adversarial relationship we have with them because they need us just as much as we need them. Okay. So the first steps to get to an event: place your case down at the AV location. Make sure you have all your totes and your stuff. Get your power and network ready. Inside the road case, there's a power strip. You can plug that in to get that's built into the road case. You can get power to the computer, the mixer, and everything, and all the microphones all set up, and then get your internet and switch set up. Okay. So, like I said, next up is audio. Okay. So there's kind of 4 big parts to audio, right? You want to put your speakers in position, get them hooked up to your mixer, test all the microphones, connect your music computer and your audience display computer, and connect your USB audio interface to the computer so that we can get the audio signal from the audio mixer back into the streaming computer here. Okay. So the speakers we showed you before, this is the back side of the speaker. The speaker has 2 inputs and 1 pass-through. All right. So the basic gist is, if I scroll down and sort of cheat a little bit here, this is your wire diagram for the speakers. Okay. So in this case, this is a setup with the AV table is on the left-hand side. It's also possible you're going to be on the right-hand side, but either way, you should be at the scoring table functionally. Okay. One thing to note, which I describe up in the text here, is that because the gates are a lot more inboard this year, people have to bring the robots relatively close to the scoring table to get it together. So what I suggest you do is, if your AV setup's at the end of the line, take your table and just slide it back 1 table width, so to give the teams more room to get their robot on and off the field. It'll help them make their experience better, and more importantly, it'll make sure you don't get whacked by a robot. You or your robot, the speakers don't get whacked by a robot. So the general layout, which you can see here, is there are 4 speakers. There we go. There are 4 speakers that go near the field, and we use the field as sort of a bit of a cable carrier here, right? So 2 of the speakers go right next to the scoring tables, okay? And you use the scoring table itself as a way to hide the wires, okay? And the 2 speakers on the audience side, right? We have our scoring table side and we have our audience side. You run those along the field border itself and through some other spots, okay? So the important thing to note is that this mixer only has 2 outputs, but we have 4 speakers. So the way we do that is that each of these speakers also has a pass-through output on it, okay? So for the speakers on the scoring table side, okay, you're gonna connect them. You'll notice this this red and green line here. The red and green represent the left and right channels of that output from the mixer, okay? You're gonna plug each of them. Actually, well, sorry. The green actually goes out to here. There's a line not shown that goes from the AV table to the speakers. It's literally right next to it, right? But you plug your 2 speakers on the scoring table side into the mixer, and then take from the output of these 2 and run them along to the speaker that's on the same side of the field, but on the opposite sort of part here, right? So you're going to run 1 cable from your AV setup to the speaker immediate to your left, 1 cable, this is the red one here, to the speaker to your right, and then you'll run 2 more cables, 1 long one coming out of the output of this left speaker, running up through the center cable ramp, along the field border, and out to here. Once you get out here, you want to put a cable ramp between the wall and the speaker at the edge of the carpet here. This is outside of the playing field area, but it's in that neighborhood. So put a cable ramp there so people don't get caught, and you can put your speaker right there. For the red side of the field over here, you have to do something a little bit goofy. The field is not symmetric, not purely symmetric. It's mirrored about the middle. So this area up here where there's no carpet is actually a human player zone. So to accommodate for that, we need to run our cables differently. So the general plan is to run them along the scoring table, up through the center cable channel, through the field, up along the field wall like we do over here. But once we get halfway to where the carpet seam is, you run that along the carpet seam and then up into the speakers, okay? So same deal as before there, okay? Just and up to the speaker here. So audience side, speakers are getting chained off of the scoring table side, okay? And this diagram shows you all the inputs going to channel 1. And over here, you got your power button to turn on and off the speaker and a volume knob. it goes through it here in the the document, but you want to connect. You want to turn the speakers on, power them up, and have the speakers on the the scoring table side be at -10 dB. Okay, so they're going to be not quite at full blast, but these speakers up on the other side will be. So those will be at the full power, 0 dB down. Okay, the reason for that is because as you chain them, it sort of like it'll end up lowering your signal a little bit. So you'll use these to sort of pump it up there. Okay, and this is how it looks in real life. If you'll notice on the left picture here, this is the speaker right next to the scoring table. Okay, and on the right, this is that speaker in the corner we talked about. We've got our cable ramps here, the wires running along the field. Okay. Now, one of the things to keep in mind about this, and as Bob sort of talked about here, run all power back to the AV outlet to the scoring table. Okay. There's going to be a power strip at each line station wall. Don't tap into those. It's highly unlikely that anything we're doing is going to cause those to trip. But the basic gist of it is that the FTAs sometimes get a little antsy, and when they see something go wrong, they're more than happy to blame whatever may be aberrant in the system, we'll say. And that would definitely be the AV speakers. Okay. So you want to make sure that you don't, even though it's tempting, don't do that. Now, one thing you can do, depending on your venue, there might be outlets nearby. Okay. So say, for example, at this venue, you can't see it, but just behind where the picture's being taken, there's a wall, right? If there was an outlet on the wall there and it made sense, you could run your power cable that way and just not have to run a big extension cord all the way back to the scoring table. But you should only do that if you're not going to create a massive cart or trip hazard by putting cable ramps down. Okay, cable ramps help people from tripping and breaking the cables. But if robots have to go over these ramps every single time they cross to get to the field, that's not really a good solution. So yeah, and here we go. Set the volume levels as follows: scoring table side -10 dB, audience side 0 dB. Okay, and the dB it'll show you directly on the screen for the speaker what this means. Okay. And so here's that mixer, as we said before. The basic layout for this: we've got our network port here. This is where you plug into the network switch to control it. You've got your aux out. This goes to the audio interface. Okay, I'll show you in a moment. And then over here we have the two outputs: one for the blue side scoring table and one for the red side scoring table speaker. Okay. So the next part is connecting to the mixer. So there are two laptops that you're going to use when you're doing the show here. Okay. So there's the DJ computer, which actually you want to take it out of the bag and we'll swap back to us real quick. There's the DJ computer, which is a laptop that is owned by the AV group here, or run by the AV group here. And so he's going to show it to you here. It's this Dell laptop. It's got a label on it on the side that says it's for AV. You can't really read it from here, but trust me, it's there. And it's got a power cord and everything you need for it in the, it's going to be in the audio crate. Okay. Password to this, also, we are NE22. All right. So that's where all the music comes from. The game sounds and all that stuff happens over a different computer that is provided by the scoring, by the field itself. The FTAs have a computer for you, and at some point you're going to need to ask them, or they're going to give you the computer that is connected to the field network only, that you will use to make all the field sounds and to show all of the field graphics. Okay. So the basic gist on how to hook in the mixer here. So we've got our first four inputs, like we talked about before: the red, blue, white, and black microphones. Okay. Those are the handhelds and the body pack mics, which we showed off earlier. Okay. And then 5, 6, and 7 are for the wired microphone and the two inputs here. Okay. So I think this might be a fair time to sort of show you the audio mixer interface real quick, but I'm just going to drag that onto the screen really quickly. This right here is the interface, and I can't make it any larger, I'm afraid. It's unless, oh, can I resize here? Hi. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, we're cutting off the bottom. Well, we'll do that for right now, I guess. But medium. All right, medium. We'll do medium. All right, that's easier to see. So this is the main sort of audio mixture you can see. And you can see we've labeled them all here. We've got our red microphone, blue, white, and black, and they all line up to an input on the mixer. Okay. So 5 here is the music. That will be the DJ computer. 6 is the field sounds. That's the audience display computer. 7 is the wired mic. Okay, that's the wired microphone in the kit. And then 8 is the extra microphone. So this is in the documentation, you'll eventually see that there's a couple of MCs that like to bring their own microphones, namely like James Lockman and Peter down in Connecticut. They like to bring their own microphones. If they do bring their own microphones and they want to set them up, that's where you're going to have to plug them in, is to port 8 on the mixer. Okay, that's the spot that you'll need. Okay. So we'll go over how the faders and all that stuff work in a little bit, but that's just to give you a representation of what this means. Here we go. All right. So these are those laptop interface boxes we showed you earlier. Basically, you'll plug in one end into the aux port on the computers, and then the other end will take an XLR, a short XLR cord that you'll plug into the mixer into the appropriate port. Okay. This knob on the top allows you to increase or decrease the volume of the sound. I suggest you start it in the middle just to get testing, so you don't accidentally blow anybody away with the music, and then put it up a little bit, and then do most of your other leveling with the audio interface instead, and then use this as sort of a some way to easily pan down or a way to get louder as needed. Okay, so so we went over all that stuff, and let's talk. Okay, here we go. These are the computers. Let's see here. Log into the laptop. Yep. One thing to note here is that you want to keep the laptop volumes at 100%. Oh, we're gonna have to just move some junk here real quick. It may seem a little weird, but you want to put your laptop volumes all at 100%. There we go. Yeah, just move that rack there. All right. Yes, you want to put the music volumes at 100% on the laptops. That way you don't have as many different places where things are changing. So keep it all there, and then up your volume elsewhere, not at the computer source. That way it's consistent. Okay. Yes, we talked about that. With respect to music, so that for music, we're actually going to be using Spotify. All right. So we won't go into the specifics about how that all works, but at the very least, we've created a few playlists in Spotify that you can use to play with. Let's see if I can bring one up here. The basic gist is that we ask that you don't start adding music that is not on the playlist. That would be a bad idea. We've curated the list. It is non-objectionable. It's some music that people are going to not complain about and meets first standards. See here.
Yeah, each year first produces a do not play and a playlist. So we kind of built these playlists off of that with the intent that, hey, we want to make sure that we're providing stuff that is generally acceptable. And so, if people were to add to this, we aren't recommending it at this time because, you have to vet, in theory, you have to vet each song.
Yeah, exactly. So there's basically 5 playlists here. The one you'll be using most of the time is the match play music list. Okay, so this has over 13 hours of music that you can play during the day, during matches to keep it going. Okay, there'll be at least two AV people per event. One person should be running the video stuff. One person should be running the audio stuff. So that means you basically have a dedicated DJ during the actual running of the event. So you're welcome to pick specific songs and play them in a specific order. Or if you don't have the bandwidth or the knowledge or the desire, you can just hit the shuffle button and play through this playlist, and it will give you 13 hours of uninterrupted, non-repeating music. Okay. We also got a couple of other lists here. So we've got this chill music playlist. This is basically some easy listening music. I suggest you should play this during day 0, just as some background noise. So it's not completely silent in the venue, but it's not it's not necessarily like getting everybody excited. You're also welcome to play this during lunch or during, at the end of the day, stuff like that, to keep everything sort of chill and going with that. Okay. There's also a couple of other playlists here. We got Dance Break. This has some dance songs in it that you can, right click to add to the queue, so that you can queue up a dance song if the field breaks. We've also got the Playoff Matches playlist. These have some good songs that are, I suggest you could play during playoffs. You'll note up here, you don't want to play straight off of this list. You don't want to just hit this play button, because it's going to be you're going to use up all your good music all at once. So this is where you would kind of strategically add them after the finals matches, or excuse me, during the finals matches, or during semifinals or quarterfinals or what have you. And then last but not least, we also have a version of the Star Spangled Banner. There's no people from outside of the United States coming to our events this year, so we don't need any other anthems, but this is a good version of the national anthem that you can play at the event during opening ceremonies. Okay. This goes over how to get the FTA, get the DJ and the audience display laptop. So the audience display laptop uses a program called Audience Display. Crazy to think that, right? I would love to show you that program. However, it literally doesn't work unless you're connected to the first field. Okay. So you may need to ask your FTA to show it to you on how it works. But it's relatively simple. Basically, you need to configure a couple of things, and then after that, it's just good to go. It'll just do all the things it needs to do. Okay, including playing the sounds and showing all the video and stuff correctly. Okay, so last bit for audio here is the USB audio interface. So like we said earlier, and if we switch back to our faces again, you can see it in the lower right-hand corner, just over there. The thing that's blinking at us, that's the device that actually takes the audio from that mixer and brings it into the computer for us. Okay, so the setup here is you've got your it has a USB-C cable that plugs into the back. You just you take the cable out of the box, plug it into the back of this, plug it into the computer. Then you plug the input from aux 1 on the mixer. So remember, we saw up here, and we saw in person earlier. Okay, we've got this aux 1 on the front panel of the mixer. We plug a cord into that side, and the other side goes in over here. Okay, and then that's how it gets your audio. And then over here, you set your gain to about 1/3. That's what we found earlier. You can up the gain there if you need it, but sort of leaving it there is a great way to make sure you don't accidentally blow everybody away on the webcast. Okay, because the real purpose of this device is only to bring the sound into the computer so that you can use it for the webcast. Okay, so this has no bearing on the venue sound. So if you turn this gain knob up and you don't hear any difference in the speakers, don't be surprised, because it's not going to happen. But everybody watching the webcast at home is going to get their ears blown out or their headphones broken. Okay. Next up is I want to just show how you would connect to the actual mixer software itself. Okay. So here in the software, it all works over the network. Okay. So there's no physical cable that directly connects this mixer to the computer. It's through that network switch. Okay. So it's all over the internet. So what's cool is that this computer can have software control on it. The DJ computer also has software control over it. If you wanted to, you could get another computer and install the software. It's free. There are also tablet apps and stuff that exist. We're not going to support them because we don't want people going around with Wi-Fi networks. That's a great way to get the FDAs angry. And so basically to connect it, you just hit your setup button up here in the upper right corner, and you hit the connect button. And it'll auto search for the computer. The computer will auto search for the mixer, hit connect, and it will connect you to that mixer directly. Okay. Then it will show a little sign that says connect. What it may show you is it may ask you if you want to synchronize settings Okay. I would suggest you don't synchronize settings. So just hit the cancel button. All the settings are set up correctly, and you may accidentally end up either wiping out all the settings or either on the PC or on the mixer by accident if you do it wrong. So just connect, hit cancel. Don't try to change any settings, and just go from there. Okay.
Oh, was this up?
This is the shift I picked
So,
up.
Oh,
I mean, I did it like a week ago, but still, and it was approved. You know,
All right.
So it's not like they don't know. But
So
somehow
that's
whoever
the basic gist of audio setup.
makes the
Okay.
schedule
For video setup,
so so
I
basically,
apologize because actually my
on the schedule.
version control was poor, and I didn't put
Was
the
that Nick
pictures of the video setup in here because they
usually
do
does
exist.
certain
Basically, you have 4 cameras to set up.
kind of
Okay,
stuff that I
you got your
don't
full field camera,
have
your
to
red,
do.
blue, and your ceremony cameras. We showed you all those things earlier.
There's a lot of factors that
Um,
make it hard
Each
to
camera needs to have SDI and power run to them, and that they need to connect to the AV
back
computer.
house,
And you also need to connect your audience display computer and maybe your DJ computer up
teachers
to
that I
your main PC here, so that you can take all their video inputs and do stuff with it.
know.
Okay. So for the full field camera setup, you're basically going to look for an image like this. Okay. And so a couple things to notice here. One is that you've got the field takes up most of the view of the screen from left to right. Okay. So we don't want a lot of dead air on the left and right sides of the screen here. Okay. And the other thing is that the camera is with the field near the top of the frame. Okay. So the hub should be near the top. You're probably going to not miss too many balls as they cross in here. But you want this to be at the top of the frame. That's because we're going to inset these lower cameras down below it here. Okay. This full field camera, we showed you all the parts earlier, but basically it affixes onto a pole that sits on a bucket that you would use to sort of keep it secure in the event. Okay. So let me find a picture of it.
Then I was watching. And
This is another picture of it here. Okay, you can see the camera, the bucket, the pole. The pole sits in. It's a telescoping pole. The camera clamps onto the top of it and sits in that bucket. Okay. At this particular event, we made a poor choice and put it in the stands because we thought that area of the stands was going to be empty. Turns out there weren't anywhere near. There was barely enough seats, I would say. So people sat everywhere they could. So people were bouncing this up and down all the time. If you can, you want to put it on the floor just to avoid all of this sort of mess. As a guide, you want to put the camera about 10 to 20 feet away from the scoring table, if you can, and at least 10 feet up in the air. Your basic goal is to try to get a picture kind of like this. Okay. So that also includes pitching the camera down a little bit to get that angle of attack you want on the picture
used to
itself.
hire AV companies like mine recently.
So setting up the red and the blue cameras. Okay, so this is a picture of how it looks when it's set up. Okay, so there's that stand that Justin was showing you earlier. Okay, it's that little tiny tripod stand that the camera sort of screws into on the top. You have your white wire for your power and your blue wire for your signal going to the camera. Camera sits on here, and we put a sandbag on the back side of it to keep the thing from moving. It's very common for these to get bumped by people, especially the head referee. So the sandbag really helps out a lot to keep that from knocking you over on you. Okay. So you may have to adjust this camera as the days go by, but that's where you want to take it. So as far as what the shot you want to get is, if you notice here, we've got these sort of side camera shots. This is what you want to do. You're basically going to angle the camera so that the majority of, so that basically from the right side of the frame, you're just barely seeing the right side of the hanging bars. And on the left side, you're going to end up seeing most of the right side of the field up to the hub. Okay. So basically you're going to cut out the hub on either side with your left and with your blue and red cameras. Justin's laughing because he wanted to make a combined camera, but that was too tricky to pull off, I think. But so yeah, that's the basics for those camera positions. So the ceremony camera. Yeah.
So your red and blue cameras, they have wide angle lenses on them, so they actually give a pretty large view of the field. So like for us, we were able to see from like Francis was saying, we were able to see the
Brought the AV in house and save money, but also to allow volunteers like
side of the red hanger all the way to just in front of the
participate.
just in front of the hub. And then similarly with blue, we were actually able to see in front of the terminal almost as far as the hub as well. So you get a pretty wide angle view, but then the full field is not. The full field is a narrow lens, so you do kind of need to be a little bit further back in order to get the whole field.
Yeah, but I'm going to show. Here we go. I got a little video of what it looked like at GSD. So this is kind of what you can see here as the blue camera. Okay, you can see the blue field here. You can see the blue hub. You can see the blue launch pad area. You can see this area of the field here. Okay, so this is kind of the view that you're looking to try to get with this. And you'll notice a robot bumped into the side of the wall and shook the camera a little bit. That's not a big deal. Okay, so this is what you can see for the full field camera during the actual event. Okay. All right. So, so with that, let's take a look at the ceremony camera. Okay. So this is the ceremony camera in position. Okay. What we've done is we've run cables all the way around the field. Follow my mouse, just like the same way we do with the speaker. Okay. You see the speaker off to the right here, except we split it off and put it here. Okay. So the ceremony camera wants to live on the far side of the field. This is where we put it when we're not doing a ceremony, basically. Okay. So that's kind of the safe spot that we put it, just get it out of the way. During the actual ceremony, we'll bring it over to the other side of the gate to get a clear shot of the center of the field so that we can see the speakers, the people who are speaking and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's the basic gist with respect to the cameras. Here's some more other pictures of sort of the setup of those cameras. So you can see we've got our pigtail on the camera. We have our power connection. We have our SDI connection in blue. And Justin, you want to say something about the power, I think, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so I was going to say the barrel adapters for the power, we recommend using just a small strip of gaff tape to hold them. Once you know that you have power to the camera, we recommend just a small strip wrapped around those barrels. That way they don't accidentally come unplugged, you know, in the event they get kicked around or whatever, the cable gets a little tugged on it or whatever. That just ensures that, you know, you keep power to those cameras. We've noticed that the barrel adapters don't fit perfectly. So just be cautious of that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's the basic part for, okay, you want to talk about that one?
So this is our red camera, and of note is that actually the stand next to it is the head ref tablet. So this was something we asked the head ref at that event to make sure that they were okay with it, because we did know that it was going to be right there. So just, it's not a bad idea to check with that head ref, make sure they're okay with it. And if they're like, yeah, I'm nervous about it, try to find another spot for it. You know, we do, like Francis was saying, we want to work with them, you know, to make this as good, the best event for all teams, not just, you know, this is what we need. Make sure you can work with them.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So a couple other things we want to go over real quick is the screen. So the screen assembles pretty easily. So if you've never, most of you, I'm guessing, have never done this before, but the basic gist of it is that the screen has this aluminum frame and this this white surface that lives on top of it. Okay. So the frame itself it basically folds out like an accordion. Okay. And it has these little clasps on the ends. You want to just rotate all those clasps into their locked position. Okay. You can sort of see that there's a gap on the bottom. We just rotated this underneath to get this locked up. Okay. In the corners, there's just some corner gussets. You just kind of snap those up so that you put it over center and lock it in place. Okay. And for the projector screen surface itself, you want to be careful because this surface is a little delicate. Okay. So rule number 1 is never leave the surface with the projector side on the ground, right? So you'd never want to like get the side the projector projects onto dirty. That would be a really, really bad idea.
I just wanted to be sure I didn't have to freak
So
out.
when you unfold it, you're basically going to just kind of unfold it piece by piece here and put it over the surface. Now, the surface itself wants to attach to this frame with these with sort of button clasps. Okay. So what we suggest you do is you start in one corner and work your way down at one side and up the other side. pressing the buttons into place. Okay. And that makes it so you don't have to try to stretch the whole thing out all at once. Okay. This surface will be completely taut over the frame once you're complete. All right. So if we look at an example of what it looks like when it's done, yeah, we'll do this one here. But this is the screen when it's completely up and done. Okay. See how the screen looks totally taut. You can't really see any wrinkles in there. Okay. It's all fresh and good here. So the other part of putting the screen up is using the pipe and drape. So the field also comes with two 14-foot tall pieces of pipe and drape with these big heavy bases. So the way that it works is the screen, you set the screen on top of the pipe and drape. There's a crossbar just that goes underneath here. Okay. And basically what you do is you zip tie under the frame, under the screen to the pipe on this bar here. Okay. And by zip tying that together, you zip tie this to the top of the frame and you zip tie it a couple times on the side. You basically want to go every other clasp with the zip tie here. So you're going to end up with about 10 or 12 zip ties all the way across, zip tying this screen onto the frame, onto this pipe and drape frame here. Okay. So when you've got that, and here we can sort of see how that looks. Okay, and we'll zoom in here. You can see how the zip tie sits around the pipe and drape, through between the aluminum frame and the projector screen itself, just to hold it onto that pipe. Okay, you can see the pipe and drape fits into the corner over here. All right.
If I do that.
All right. So from the other side, it should look like this, with your screen resting on top of that. Okay. So this is the kind of the tricky part of this process. Okay. So at the end of the day, your setup is gonna actually look like this. So what you'll notice is we've got this 14-foot tall pipe and drape sitting on top of these two road cases here. Okay. So case 6 and 7 include a lot of the FMS electrical stuff, control stuff. So we need to wait for the field to have those mostly done before we put those together. Okay. So in order to accommodate that, you could put the projector up onto its bases on the floor to get it out of the way, but then wait until these cases are empty to put it up. Okay. So the tricky part is, you can see here, we've ratchet strapped this base down on top of the case here like this. All right. So that it doesn't want to move away. The best way that we found to do this is to place the bases on top of the road cases to start with. Okay. So you have one base on each case. So you've got your screen on the poles, right? And so have one person on each pole. Lift the screen up vertically using the wall if you need to as a sort of stabilizer. Okay.
The only thing I would
And
add
then
is
have people slide the road cases in underneath the poles. Once that happens, go ahead. Questions?
I would have put just some sprinkled red pepper, some fish pepper.
Bob, are you speaking, Bob?
A lot of these are fine. They call for, creamy peanut butter and chopped peanuts.
Why don't you just use chopped peanut butter?
Well, that's fine.
Bob, you want to just say that one more time? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you're saying. I think Bob may have accidentally unmuted his mic.
So, so,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah. So Gary.
All right. So,
Gary Post.
so this is a little bit of a tricky operation.
In your
We'll just mute him. There we go. Bob, we love you. We're just going to mute you real quick here. You can unmute yourself later on, though. So this is a little bit of a tricky operation, but if you, with 2 people lifting and 2 people pushing the road cases, it should be pretty easy. You can just grab any field volunteer that you need to help you out with this, to get this done. In the event, we'll probably want to hang the first banner from the bottom of the screen so that it's up and people can take a look at it and see how beautiful it is. So with that. So the next thing is sort of the projector aspect of it. And so this is a little bit tricky on a couple of fronts. The biggest one being that as of right now, we only have one projector going out. So we're gonna supplement training later on once we get a finalized plan for that. But the current plan right now is that I think that we're just gonna have Justin or myself set up the projectors at the events until at least for a few weeks, so we get the finalized projectors in place. Then once that happens, we'll get it going. But just for your edification, so you guys kind of can see what goes on. These projectors have a lens that sort of seats into the front of it. These are what I would call heavy duty, sort of like classroom projectors. They're about 6,000 lumens, or excuse me, 8,000 lumens. The final ones we're going to have, and they work at about 15 feet away from 15 to 20, 10, let's say about 15 feet away from the screen. Okay, so you get, oh, here we go. Here's the projector in its final setup configuration. Okay, so down here, this is a stand that we have for it. It sits on the ground. Up above here is the projector mount. This rigidly mounts the projector. And over here is this adjustable mount that we use to do some final adjustments on it. So what we found is the best practice is to mount this at least 6.5 feet up off the ground. And that's so that any tall person can't just walk past it and cast a shadow. And then pitch the projector up a little bit so that when it's going at the screen, it can sort of project more fully onto the screen. Okay, so this is a little bit too small of an image, right? We kind of don't want to have this. We want to try to use that full screen if we can. And so this right here was a better utilization of that screen space. Okay, you can see there's still some dead space, but not as bad. Okay, so we'll also provide some training materials on exactly how to keystone the projector in. But right now, we don't really feel comfortable doing it because there are just we're going to be using kind of a mishmash of projectors for a week or two. And the truth is that because of supply chain issues and a vendor that fell through on us, that may be the case for the entire season. So we don't want to train you on one system and then have you experience something totally different at each of the events that you're at or what have you. So, so that's the basics on setting up the sound, setting up the projector, setting up the video. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'm going to kind of turn this over to Justin, and Justin's going to show you the inner workings of how the XAir video audio mixer software works. And what you haven't probably seen yet is the video mixing software that's called vMix. So Justin, I'll let you take the con here, and you can start with whatever one you prefer. And if anyone has questions, feel free to pipe up and let us know.
Alrighty, so we can start with yeah. So we'll kick it off with the XAir edit. So like Francis said, you connect to this pretty easily. It's just a network-based connection, and you can see you have your 16 plus channels here. So we only actually use the first 8 or so. You're primarily really going to be using these 4 up to the red, blue, white, and black microphones, and then your music and field, and maybe your wired mic based on venue. Each channel is set up pretty similarly for our audio ones, and then for our music, it's a little different. And so we've got a couple things set up on them. If you click on these tabs up here, you can see there's mixer, channel, input, gate, EQ, comp, sends, main, FX, and meter. Really, we're only concerned with the mixer. You'll be able to see your different levels. You can see my microphone talking, the red microphone. You can see the level bouncing there. So, that's really all we need. And then as you can tell, I can move it up and down nice and easy. I can also mute it. That way we can, if you need to mute a microphone for whatever reason, you can do that there. I can click on the channel tab with which, oh yeah. So up here is gain. So I can also increase or decrease it here. I'm just using my scroll wheel right now. And that's an easy way if you're like, oh, this microphone's really quiet. We've got it all the way up on the fader. We don't know what to do. Try increasing that. We had to do that on a couple of our microphones to help get the volume to be a little bit louder, including our music and even field sounds. But that's, again, it's going to be up to you and how things sound at your event. Generally, it should be set pretty well, but
yeah. And one thing just to be cautious of is as you change the gain, that's where you're going to get your consistent hiss coming from. So you want to try to, make any small movements with your faders and then do your big stuff with the gain just to bring it up to line level.
Yeah, that's a good one, Francis. So then here, these we can go into detail, but they're your buses. They link to these over here, which is linked to that aux out. So bus 1, which is the only one we use. All these yellow bars are the levels for the different outputs. So you can, if you notice, this one called music has no output level, and that's because we don't want to send any music to the stream just because Twitch doesn't like music, so it's easy enough for us. But we can take a look. We'll start with the red mic channel, and I'll just go over these really quickly. Taking a look, you can see we've got channel input, noise gate, EQ, compressor, and our bus sends. So we do have, on some of the channels, we do have compressors, just trying to help make the audio sound a little bit nicer. And some of them have noise gates. That helps remove some of the low end, like really quiet, maybe background noise that you might hear in a microphone. That's all that does. So we can play with it here. If I turn it on and I bring up the threshold, you can probably hear me. And if I crank it way up, you guys probably can't hear me unless I talk really, really loud. Again, this is more the detailed stuff. You don't need to use this. Really, if it's giving you a problem, let us know, or go into one of these. And if that button is blue, that means it's enabled. You can always turn it off, try to solve it there. Of note, one of the ones we have noticed with the packs, they were giving us a little bit of low end feedback. So in our EQ,
And by feedback, he means like that awful ringing sound that you get when you have some over.
Yeah. So in the equalizer, we have that brought way down, trying to take it out, but you may results may vary.
One way to make sure that doesn't happen to you is it should be pretty easy to do audio checks. All your speakers are pointed away from the field, right? And so anywhere on the field is basically a quiet zone, but there's no direct, speaker power going in there. So as long as your MC doesn't decide to start sitting in the stands and using their body pack, you are highly unlikely to get feedback. That may change based on the literal, how the voice of your MC actually carries, right? Different frequencies cause different things. So just kind of be aware of it. If ringing does start to happen, most MCs and game announcers are smart enough to mute the microphone so they don't continue. But if it gets really bad, if you go to the EQ tab, you can start to sort of see where things are happening and start cutting out generally it'll be a lot of low end feedback. You can start cutting out the low end by basically dragging those buttons down to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, and so hopefully you don't have to deal with it too much, but if you do, it's good to know how to take care of that. You can either use a low cut or you can drag these to bring up or down your highs, whatever you need to do. And some of them do have gates, like I was saying. So the mic packs do have noise gates. That way, when your MC's out on the field and they're not talking, we don't just hear a ton of background noise. And then the other thing of note is this music channel. It has what's called a ducker on it. So if music was playing when I'm not talking or when one of the microphones isn't talking, the music will be playing regular volume. But then if I were to suddenly start talking, it actually brings the music down. That way it's a little bit nicer of an experience. Instead of loud music, loud announcer, you kind of get quieter music, loud announcer. That's pretty much it for this. This is the main out. You do want to be monitoring your stream, and your stream sounds are going to be coming through this bus 1. So if I go over here and I click on bus 1, you can see that all of them are suddenly highlighted in yellow, and my faders have changed positions. These are the faders here. So my microphones are all around the same level, but then my music comes all the way down. And then I have my field sounds wired mic and extra mic are all at the same level again. You may need to change this if you're noticing that a certain microphone is too quiet or too loud on the stream, but sounds okay everywhere else. You may need to change it here or change this. Notice again, it's yellow now. So that means I'm on the bus 1. And if I click on main left, right, it changes too.
Just bring that up to Unity so we don't have to forget.
Yeah. trying to think if there's anything else.
That seems about it. I think if you're an experienced person who's used an audio mixer before, this has a lot of cool settings in there that you can do some other stuff with. But for the most part, really all you need to care about is just making sure you can change your audio levels to balance everything out together and make everybody happy that way, and to stop any feedback that happens consistently.
Yeah. So then I guess we can move on unless there are
Is-
any questions about that. We'll
Yeah,
move
is
on
there
to
a
the-
way to actually listen to what's going out on the stream?
Yes. So on the red Scarlet box that we showed earlier, there is a 1/4-inch jack there, which you can plug in. Hold on. Coming over to Francis.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, okay. I've used the Scarlet before, so I know where that is. So that's where we can listen to the stream.
Yeah. So he's pointing to there's a connection there, which actually we're using to listen to you guys, but that there for GSD, I had my headphones plugged in, so I was able to listen to the stream. So you can hear the stream sounds that way. That's what's going into the PC. Which that gave me a really good sense of what the stream is hearing, and that way I don't have to play with the actual levels of the building or venue. Does that answer your question?
It does, absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect.
The other thing too that you can't beat is if you just open up your phone and go to the Twitch site, you can listen to it there. And if things are going wrong, people will absolutely be more than happy to tell you. They may not always be correct, but they'll say something. So, yeah.
Well, but we're not supposed to use the Wi-Fi in the venue, so are we just doing that over LTE or?
You could do that over you could use it over your LTE, for example, right? Yeah. That's what I do sometimes. I'll just put it on and listen to it for just a moment to make sure everything sounds, good, that there's no like horrible hiss that I didn't notice, or some sort of like somebody's mic is being pegged constantly or what have you. And then I just turn it off once I know my settings are happy.
So we can move into the vMix portion of this. If we are all set with sound, because vMix also does have a little bit of sound integration. It's not as great nor as expansive as the XAR edit is going to be, but it does have some, which gives some good feedback.
WPI Sports and Recreation.
Sorry about that, folks. Just one more announcement from the venue. All right, so vMix is this. It's a software-based video switcher. It's a really powerful tool. I have been using it for a little while. I know some of you may have heard of OBS Studio. It's an open source free one. Similar yet different, but I've heard it's pretty easy. It seems like it's pretty easy to switch between the two. So down here is our inputs. So some of them are collapsed. I can expand all of these just by right-clicking on the title. So that way they are popping up for us. And a lot of them are going to be black because we don't have nearly enough stuff connected. But we'll be able to use it for this purpose. And then up here, you have an orange box and a green box. So your green box is your program out. And so that's like what's being displayed. That's what's on any of your external, if you have your live stream going, it's going to be there. It's going to be at your projector. For you guys, it's what you guys see on our stream. And then the orange is a preview. So I can click around and change my preview without actually changing what's been displayed. So here we have like a social media thing that has been up. I'm able to change that easily without actually affecting the output, though I am because it's a desktop capture. And then to change them, I can just use any of these buttons here. I can either cut real quick or I can make it a fade. There's all sorts of different ones. You can, if you really wanted to get fancy, you can T-bar with it. But really, I typically just use fade. It's a nice, easy transition. I'd show you, but it'll take out the whole video. So it's nice and easy. I'm just using my mouse and clicking right on the video, and that's selecting whichever one I want to see. So here you can see they're each labeled, or they should be labeled with what they are. That way it makes your life a little bit easier. So we've got our full field, red, blue, our ceremony camera. And then 5 was our audience display. Obviously, since we don't have an audience display hooked up to it, we can't really show you that. But that one actually requires a little bit more settings. And so for any of the inputs, if you're like, oh, I need to change something about it, or there's a setting you need to configure, you'll click on that gear icon right there. Again, the gear in the bottom corner. That'll pop open this box. There you got your name. If you for whatever reason have to change the source, which you hopefully shouldn't have to, that option is there. But otherwise, for the audience display, the important one is actually this color key, which it should be set, but if for some reason it's not working, it's very easy. You can turn this checkbox on and off. You may even can use this eyedropper tool to pick out the color that you need. And that's how the audience display comes up actually as a bar at the bottom and then a solid color above it. And basically we're telling vMix, hey, get rid of that color. We don't want it. Typically it's like a fuchsia. Other colors like green doesn't work because the time bar is actually green. And so you can accidentally take that out. So fuchsia, I believe, is the standard. And we did run into one issue where when we keyed it out, we noticed that there was a ton of like static on it. And you can take care of that by turning this anti-aliasing off, which is just that as a feature. Again, there's a ton of features here, but I'm going to try not to go into too many of them into too much depth. Did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that, yeah, the fuchsia is the default color. So unless the FTA makes you change the audience display by default, it should just work. Knock on wood.
Yeah, and they should know how to change that color. If you're not sure, you can ask them. They will hopefully be able to help you there. So also of note is this input here. It's labeled audio microphone. That is actually the Scarlett box. That is it reads the Scarlett box as an input. So that will never have anything visual to display, but it will always be sending something. We always want it sending an audio to the main out or to the stream, because that's what people need to hear, right? So some ways to make sure that you're actually sending audio out is this green box here, or these audio buttons down here. If I click it, it's going to turn green. And now it's actually sending to the output of the stream. We don't have any music playing, so we can't really show it off too much, but that is the basic principle. They have two like level bars here. They're very small. They'll be green if they're going to the output, or blue if they're just there and not doing anything. And you can also click on this audio mixer over here. Sorry, I know I keep saying over here, but it's this audio mixer button will pop up this. I like to unpin it so I can show you everything. But in short, these are the different inputs that have the ability to play sounds. And as you can see, we have red, our ceremony camera, and pretty much everything else is brought all the way down except for this videos, which we were using. You may need to do if you have to play like sponsor videos or like the Alliance selection video, you may need to play, which we can kind of get into how we did that in a bit, but that is something you'll have to know, is how to bring up and down these levels. But again, you should have like one that just says audio in or audio mics input, and that'll be all the way up. And that should be the only thing with one of these green boxes for the M, which stands for like sending to master if you hold it over. Again, the other best way is just bring them down if you don't need them. Just bring the audio level all the way down. That way you don't have to worry about it. Any questions so far? I know we're kind of going over a lot. Cool. So here we've also got down here, if you had to add an input, this is how you could add like another camera or a color or a scene or whatever you need to do. You can add it here. You won't have to do too much of that because everything should be set up already. And do note that if you have add a video here, but you don't put it in, the music from this is only going to play to the stream. It doesn't go back to the mixer, and it doesn't go back then to the speakers at the venue. So even though you could add videos to this, they won't actually play to the venue. So just be cautious of that. This tri-view was what we saw on the NEFIRST Twitch from GSD. So we called it a tri-view. It's got the full field in the background, and then it has the two smaller cameras left and right for the hangers, and then the score bar down at the bottom. This was our wonderful red-blue split. So if we had the other camera set up, these are actually just two different layers. which we can go into this layers, and you can see it's red and blue as cameras just layered on each other. And the position is set in such a way that you will only see the red hanger and the blue hanger. You may have to play with that a little bit just because, if a camera gets moved or it's not exactly in the same position, your hanger could look a little different. So looks like Francis is. Okay. So he's going to do some setup for us in a little bit to get some of that working. But the other thing I do want to put of note is, so the audience display, because it is keyed, or because we, chroma key out the pink background, it makes that portion transparent. And the audience, the scoreboard at the bottom will actually be something that you would display. So, I wish we had one that I could show you, but the next best thing is this, this social tile. So this social tile is actually very similar. There's no background, even though there's a black, it looks black here, there's no background. And how I trigger what's called an overlay is by clicking this one down here. If I just regular click it, as you can see, it suddenly popped up. And that's kind of how the audience display works, because it's got a transparent background for the most part. When they show the score, it doesn't. So it just like takes over and you don't actually have to worry about it, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about like switching to a different view as long as you have the audience display on as an overlay, which personally I recommend just keep it on at all times. It makes sure that the event runs well and that, teams are able to see the score and the FTAs are able to see the scoreboard. They really like that. They get a little sad when they don't get to see them. So that's kind of the gist of how that would work with your audience display, except I'm doing it with this social tile. You can turn it off just by clicking that green button again, and now it's gone. Trying to think of anything else. Oh yeah. So then we have a couple of outputs. So we have one external output and we do two streams, because one stream is a static camera of the full fields. That way teams are able to, it's just a camera. We don't do any of the switching on it. And then the other one is, I kind of call it our primary switch. That's what we spend a lot of our, that's what we spend most of our time switching on. And that's how, we can make it look cool. That's what the projector will be. So to do that, we go, you have external and your stream here. If I were to click on this external button, it would shut off the external stream, which is going to look weird for you guys, because I believe it turns it off. And similarly, if I click this stream button, it will start streaming, but I don't think this computer has anything linked to it, hopefully. So yeah, just be careful about clicking the stream on and off, because that actually can be, the official stream channels. And I think some people get notifications when they get triggered. So you want to be careful about, just turning those on and off randomly.
Yeah. And just a tip here, you want to turn on your stream basically like 5 or 10 minutes before opening ceremony starts. And then or the driver's meeting. If there's a driver's meeting on that day, you can turn that on a little bit earlier so people can see the driver's meeting and practice matches. But if you're on day 2, for example, you want to turn that stream on right before the opening ceremony starts, and then turn your stream off not long after closing. So, Justin, can you just recheck the full field one? Because you should have something there. Okay.
We know about that error. We're going to debug it after this meeting and make sure that that's all set, or come up with a temp solution for it.
We just have to reboot.
Yeah. But again, that is kind of how you would, if you had to change your input here for some reason, which again, you shouldn't have to, nice and easy for you guys. But if you do have to, it'll be here. We'll provide a key of which number correlates to which camera. Ooh, sorry. So for your external, this is pretty easy. This is your setting, which is which will pop up this, and all I have to do is click this external output settings, which is going to bring up this is the main settings box. So we actually have this set so that it outputs to our capture card out on input or output 1. And that is what's going to our projector. So that's how, if you connect your projector and you got all the cables running, you're like, all right, it should work, and you see nothing, make sure that that external box is red. Otherwise, something could be wrong. You may have to restart vMix if you make changes in here. So, be cautious when you do make changes, and be cognizant that, like, if you do have to restart it, you want to try to do it when it's a good time to stop the stream and matches aren't running. So I'm going to say no to this for now because I don't need to. And that's how you kind of change your external. Again, you should just have to turn it on or off just by hitting that red box. Now for the streams, I'm going to hit this gear icon, which will pop up here. And there's 2 streams. We use 1 and 2. They are pretty much all set. I think we might have to log into them. We'll have to log into them now.
We don't have a login for yet, but
We'll get that all set. And these pretty much are all set. All you have to do is hit start all or start 1 and start 2.
or from the main screen, if you just hit the stream button down there, that'll light up both streams at the same time.
Yeah, I believe.
It should be armed and ready.
Yeah. So I can click the little arrow and I can tell it which stream I want to start, or I'd hit start both. And similarly, when I click that again, if it was on, I click it again, it turns them off. Just be careful about that. Something else that's important is when you start those streams, we like to check. So, using another device, hop on NEFIRST, red, blue, green, orange, whichever the channel is that you're using, and verify that what you expect to be seen is being seen. We had a couple instances where we thought it was one thing and it turned out to be another. So if, for example, your secondary or that static camera isn't what you expect, go to settings and outputs, and it's here. So output 1 and 2, they correlate to external 1 and external 2. External 2 is that stream, I believe that stream.
Yeah, the second stream. Yeah.
So, I want to make that, I believe input 11 is our tri-view, which is the one that we liked using, provided to people, as a good option to go and just be able to like sit and watch without having any camera changes. Yeah. It may ask me to reboot or not. So yeah, that's some of the basics of it. We'll head back. We'll show you guys again.
Yeah, so that's the basis of how the vMix part works. And so we know that first off that this is a lot of different things going on here. We've got, sound, projection, video, setting it all up and running it. At the end of the day, the setup part is a fair bit of work, right? You got to put a lot of things together, lay a lot of cables down, lift some speakers up into the air. That's when you can sort of enlist other people who maybe not working on AV to assist with, right? But during the actual event, there's actually not a lot to do. Sorry about that. There's actually not a lot going on. Basically, one person is here swapping views live to sort of give a produced feed, and one person's over here monitoring the audio and being the DJ basically during the event. And teardown is just as easy as putting everything back in the boxes that it came in. Once you're all set up and running, it's pretty easy to get going. And so to cover the last things before we let everybody go for the evening, we'll talk briefly about support and stuff like that. So like we said, Justin and I are going to a bunch of events this year to help support you guys, to support the whole district, and make sure that everybody is everything goes to plan and everybody's happy. So we'll be there to help out a lot. The other thing is that each of these computers has TeamViewer on it. So we have a method to get into these computers remotely if we needed to. These computers are also going to be set up with Slack, which is basically a communication tool. So you don't need to create an account for it, but it'll have an account that's unique to this computer that you can use while you're running the AV big computer here, you can use that while you're doing the event, and communicate with Justin or myself if you have any problems. Like, say, for example, you're like, oh, I don't know why the webcast keeps going down or whatever. We can answer, or like, oh, where do I find this cable, right? You can message us and we'll get back to you. And if things go terribly wrong, we can remote in and take control of your computer directly and make changes on the go as need, or even just use it as a tool to sort of see what's going on. So, but that being said, we expect one of us to be at every single event in New England this year, at least for the setup portion, if not, there for the setup or with our team, so we can help answer questions as time goes by. So, and on top of that, once I figure out where the rest of the document went or recreate it, we'll be sending out a big manual about how to do this, basically from start to finish. So if you need to, you don't necessarily have to scroll through this video to find all the information. There will be a manual that you can use to just sort of plug your way through the whole setup and operation of the service. So with that said, do we have any questions before we sort of wrap up for the evening here? Go ahead and unmute if you want, or you can type them in the chat, whatever's easier for you all.
What's the spare parts situation look like?
Good question, Jake. So the field, each kit has some amount of spare pieces. Not a ton, but there's some. So if something goes really awry, such as like one of the cables breaks or whatever, you can contact Justin or myself, and we have a store of things centrally located here at WPI that we can get out to your event as needed. So that being said, there's plenty of extra XLR cable. There's plenty of extra SDI cable. Technically, we only really need one camera, which is the full field camera. So you have 3 cameras. So all you need is one. If you need it down mix to 1, you can go over there. With respect to speakers, all you need are 2. Technically, it'll be quiet, a little bit quieter than you probably wanted, but if that happens, that'll happen there. But if there is a problem, notify us on Slack, and we can distribute spare parts to you guys. The one kind of part that we don't have a spare for is the projector. There is a plan to have a spare. So yeah, Bob, good question. So with respect to the projector, there were some supply chain issues. We had a vendor cancel their order on us, and so that kind of put us behind the 8 ball with respect to projectors. So we have one projector right now that we're using for one run, and we have another projector. We're borrowing and or getting a new projector shipped in for the other run right now. So we will publish some supplementary training on how to set that up and use it once we know what it is, because we don't want to train you guys on one thing and then give you something else. But that being said, Justin and I are going to be at each of those events for setup, and for right now, we're going to make sure the projector that we have at the event is set up correctly. So I wish I had a more answer that inspired more confidence, but that's what I have at this juncture. So any other questions, anybody? Feel free to type them in or put them in the chat. What we'll do is, so we're recording this right now. We're going to upload it up to YouTube, and then we'll send this out to everybody so they can view the recording at any time. You guys can go back and look at stuff, watch the demo for the vMix or for the audio stuff, or take a look at what the things you're expecting are. And you can also expect a link to that AV documentation as well. So
what's the best time for us to get to the venues on day 0?
Good question. So it depends on what your volunteer coordinator is saying. So if field setup starts at, say, what did it say, 11 a.m. at GSD, right? They were basically ready by 1, but they were also a little understaffed probably with the field. So I would suggest that you get there, 1 or 2 hours, no more, later than field setup starts. That being said, your goal, step 1, the most critical goal, is to get the speaker set up in time for team's arrival, which is consistently at 5 p.m. And so even if they say that setup starts at 12, you may not actually have much to do until 2 o'clock, but you need to get everything ready and set up so that when 5 o'clock hits, you have those speakers ready. So I would suggest what you do is get there no later than like 1, no matter what the start time is, unless the start time is after 1 o'clock, in which case all bets are off. So if anybody has any, I know that we've had some New Hampshire events that had their, like last year at Woodstock, the venue was access to the venue at 4 and the teams arrived at 5. So get there at 4 if that's the case. If setup starts at 10 a.m. and you can expect AV setup to be ready by around 12. So yeah, does that answer your question? I know it's a little complicated, but does that answer what you're asking?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Great, no problem.
I had one more quick question, and sorry if you covered this already. What's the packaging look like for all this equipment? Is the speakers in like a road case or in their cardboard boxes, or what's going on with them?
Great question. So we did cover this at the beginning, but I'll just sort of show you real quick. So don't mind the slight mess there. I ripped some stuff off in the middle of the event. So most of the AV stuff fits into those 3 totes, all the cables and little bits and pieces. Then there's the road case, which has the mixer and the computer in it. And then, the monitors. And then we have the speakers come in their cardboard boxes for this season. And then on top of that, there's a few odds and ends, like the camera pole and the bags that the stands for the speakers come in. Those come in there. There's too big to fit in their own thing. But Justin, are you pulling up the picture of the road case? Yep, there we go. So
Yeah.
we'll show.
So this is also one of the cases that NEFIRST provided us that we're kind of coordinating with them. It was formerly known as the awards case, I believe. It's just a wooden case, and you can see that at the bottom we have our 3 totes in there. On top of that are all of our extension cords, kind of our loose, like big cords. So the extension cords, each setup is going to have at least 2 sandbags, and then that upper part here has all of our cable ramps, and then the stands that our projectors, that the speakers go on. We have our monitors, and there's a base in there for the screen. On top of that is the screen case it comes in. So it kind of comes in its own nice case. And then this big net folds over and zip ties and straps down to the points and kind of holds everything in. So you'll have that along with the road case are the big things I believe you have to bring in. Oh, and the poles. The poles are separate. I believe for GSD, they stuck them in a case in another one of the longer road cases. So you may just have to work with your field personnel onto where those are. Yeah. Does that kind of help put together some of the pieces?
It does. Yes. Thank you.
Great. All right. So we know that some of you guys are doing multiple events. Some of you guys are doing one event. Both are great. Our goal is to eventually make it so that each event has their own sort of person in charge of AV, so that nobody has to go to a bunch of events every year. I know, for example, Sam, you're going to several events, which is great. But if during your event you like what you did and you find it interesting, district championship, we're going to need folks to help out with that as well. We've got 2 fields. We're not running everything at district champs. We're just running the video portion of district championships. But I think that given the COVID situation, that might be the most important part, because it's going to allow everybody who can't make it to the venue to watch live. So if you're interested in that and you're available, even if it comes to week 4 and you're like, wow, this was a lot of fun, I want to do it again, you can contact either me or Justin, or you can just sign up for district championship and put in the notes you want to be part of the AV crew, and we'd be happy to have other folks to help out with that. So any last questions before we sort of wrap up for the evening?
I just wanted to put this this note out there that, if you're at your event and whatever, a cable stops working, either mark it or throw it out, right? Don't put it back in the case unmarked. Because whoever is at the next venue, is gonna be like, oh, look at this perfectly good cable, and then go plug it in and have issues. We just want to prevent that. That way, if Francis and I know that, oh, hey, we have to replace, XYZ, whatever it be, we're happy to take care of that. We just want to know earlier rather than, ideally day 0 of the next event, because they would be, because the turnaround time is quick, but not that quick. So, you know, if something breaks, just send us a message on Slack or message us however you can. And we'll make sure that another part gets to that run.
Yeah, everything we bought with the intention that we can get, except for the projectors and the screens, everything we can get within about 2 days. So if we have notice, we can fix it. And like I said, we'll be at the events. Just let us know on Slack so we can make a group order for the whole broken weekend if we need to. All right, gang, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to call it a night, and you should have my email address at the very least. So you can, if you have questions individually, you're welcome to send me an email. And with that, we look forward to seeing you guys at the events this season. Have a good one. Thanks, Sam.